This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, Carmen CJ, Rune Scribble, and Papa Podo, and brought to you by 212th Trooper who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon and become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, you'll get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Now, before we get into today's story, I just want to ask you to do me a favor, hit that like button, since it tells YouTube you enjoy what I do, and check whether you're subscribed, since only about a quarter of my viewers are, and it's a free way to keep up to date with all my content. In return, I'll do all I can to keep making regular quality content for you. Thanks, and let's hop in. Spiders are among the most misunderstood organisms in the biosphere, dismissed as vermin, feared as omens, and yet they are marvels of evolutionary design. A micro-apex predator that dominates beyond its scale, equipped with hydraulic musculature capable of lifting dozens of times its own weight, and sensory arrays so refined they can read the world through the faintest tremor in the air. Every leg is a receiver, every strand of silk an extension of perception. They do not see danger, they feel it. Their motion is silent calculation, strength without waste, precision without hesitation. Such a creature deserves far greater respect than it is given, and in time, it will have that respect, whether the world welcomes it or not. In the days to come, these words may be seen as prophetic, though for now, they are just the latest thoughts recorded by a scientist as he observes his specimens. Though, unbeknownst to him, one of his subjects is no longer within his grasp, as having been mistaken for dead, the doctor had ordered its disposal, caring little as it had been among the smallest and weakest of the specimens, only for the creature to reawaken and scuttle out of sight, all the while the hapless lab assistant remained blissfully ignorant. At the same time, another small and weak specimen is scuttling upon the ground. Azuku Midoriya, or as he is known to his peers, Deku, having yet again fallen prey to the machinations of his school's apex predator, Katsuki Bakugo, who had used his explosive quirk to blast the Mika boy's notebook, forcing him to scramble as he tries to gather the scattered and scorched pages. Due to this being a fairly regular occurrence at Aldera Junior High, the teacher does not even stop the tour, instead leading his remaining students through Jaku General Hospital towards the conference room, where the director is giving a speech on quirk biology, and simply figuring that Midoriya will catch up in his own time. Not that it really matters if he attends or not, considering his lack of a quirk. While it takes a minute or two, Deku does eventually gather up the pages, though spotting the one he was just working on is still missing, he looks around and finds it against an air duct underneath one of the couches lining the waiting room. Fortunately, as a fairly scrawny boy, he's able to reach underneath, his hand closing around the page, when suddenly, a sharp pain shoots up his hand. Recoiling it with a yelp, he sees what appears to be a welt, though thankfully he does not need to guess at what it is, as lying where his hand had just been is a now dead spider with rather pronounced pincers. Also thankfully, because he is in a hospital, when he cries out in pain, a nurse is quick to respond, pulling him aside and assessing the injury. From what she can tell, it is not infected, so there was likely no venom, meaning the boy got off lucky with just a little pain and a shock. But recognizing that this must be hard for him, she encourages him to take a break, maybe eat something or have a drink, while she calls his mother to come pick him up. Accepting this is for his own good, Deku obeys, taking a seat in the atrium and finishing off the leftover banana cake his mother had packed for him, with this helping to dull the ache somewhat, so that by the time Inko arrives, he is back to his usual cheerful self. Nonetheless, Inko is still frantic, giving him a check-over of her own and insisting they should consult the family physician Dr. Tsubasa right away, though feeling rather tired after everything that's happened today, Deku asks if they can do that tomorrow. Figuring that rest is probably good, Inko agrees, fussing over her son all the way home and then putting him to bed with a warm mug of tea and one of his favourite All Might documentaries. Thanks to this, the green-haired youth is soon out like a light, with it coming as a surprise the following morning to learn that he slept for over 18 hours. Still fearing that something might be wrong, Inko insists that he take the day off school, with the pair heading to the doctor's office so the mustachioed medicine man can inspect the bite, despite having seemingly faded overnight. As was the case with the nurse yesterday, he states that it's probably nothing and that Deku should be fine to return to school, though just to be safe he'd like to see him again on Monday, with Inko booking this in while Deku decides to wait in the car. Stepping out of the doctor's office, he is suddenly struck by an odd sense of foreboding that causes him to leap backwards, while a second later, a distracted cyclist whizzes right through the place he'd just been standing. Having never experienced anything like this before, Deku was left shocked, since there's no way he could have seen that guy, but somehow he knew to get out of the way, almost like a premonition. In the days that follow, the green-haired youth is struck by several more of these tingles, namely when Bakugo and his cronies are on the prowl and looking for someone to bully, with these allowing him to avoid the blonde boy entirely. Though this is not the only strange occurrence, as when he looks at himself in the mirror, he sees definite signs of muscles that were not there before. And while this could just be puberty finally kicking in, he's pretty sure puberty doesn't happen over a couple of days, and he's certain it doesn't suddenly give him the strength to accidentally rip the door off his locker like he does on Friday. As a result, when he goes for his checkup with Dr. Tsubasa the following Monday, it is with a question in mind, one he almost dares not to think, since to hear this dream tonight again might just break his heart. Is it possible he's finally getting his quirk? Unfortunately, when he arrives at the practice, he is made to wait a little, since it seems a clerical error has resulted in the doctor being double booked, while Tsubasa himself seems almost surprised to see the boy. Nonetheless, he does hear him out, and while he admits that it is highly unlikely that someone could develop a quirk at Deku's age, he does take some blood samples to run a few tests, even if he also encourages the boy not to get his hopes up. While not a no, this response still comes as a rather crushing blow to the young man, so that as he begins the walk home, he doesn't notice the danger signal until a villain made of slime is almost on top of him. Cackling maniacally, the sludge villain then attempts to crawl through his mouth and nose, declaring that he'll use him as a hideout until the heat's off. Though refusing to die like this, Deku's body reacts on its own, lashing out with all its might, and in this case, all its might is quite considerable, as when his fist lands on the sludge villain's torso, it explodes in a fountain of green slime, making the criminal howl in pain before rapidly disengaging, since he thought this brat was going to be a soft target, not some little wannabe hero. Meanwhile, Deku pants and holds his knees, not even fully aware of what he just did. That is, until a voice from behind him comments that his strength is quite impressive, but he really ought to be more careful with how he uses his quirk. Recognizing that voice at once, but almost refusing to believe that it could really be him, Deku spins around, and to his amazement, finds none other than All Might smiling down at him. For a second, the green-haired youth wonders if this is a hallucination from lack of oxygen, though when All Might lays a hand on his shoulder, he is forced to accept that it is real. Unfortunately, that also means his reaction is real. As unable to contain himself, Deku begins fanboying uncontrollably, bombarding the symbol of peace with a million questions while also expressing how much he looks up to him and has studied his career so closely. Sweat dropping a little at this kid's intense reaction, All Might chuckles that it's alright, though something in the boy's story does give him pause. He said he was quirkless, yet that was definitely a super strength quirk he just exhibited, though he supposed if anyone knows about gaining incredible abilities despite being born without them, it's him. To this end, he asks the young man, who he learns is called Midoriya, to slow down and explain, with his story being a very interesting and familiar one indeed, as he suddenly developed signs of a quirk last week seemingly out of nowhere. While not quite the same as One for All Might can't help but feel a kinship with young Midoriya, especially when he learns that his dream has always been to attend UA and be a pro hero, even if he had to do so without a quirk. With this giving the symbol of peace an idea, as he asks if the boy would like to train with him so he can better learn to control his strength. After all, they can't have him hitting regular people as hard as he hit that sludge villain. Having only ever dreamed of such an opportunity, Deku nearly passes out from excitement, though thankfully he does stay conscious long enough to agree, with he and All Might making arrangements to meet up the following morning and begin their training, since there's no time like the present. At first, this starts off like canon as beach cleanup duty, though due to Deku's immense strength, he's able to handle this much quicker, while also honing his precog danger instinct, since more than once it prevents him from touching jagged rusty metal or hazardous waste, which would have ended badly. Not only that, but during this cleanup he also discovers that he has the ability to climb up flat surfaces, as while trying to push a discarded shipping container, he accidentally finds himself climbing it instead, despite having no hand or footholds to speak of. While this training is grueling, it is also deeply fulfilling, as he gets to spend more time with his idol, getting to know All Might personally to the point where on top of being mentor and pupil, they could also be called friends. As part of this, he learns about All Might's injuries and how he can only maintain his muscle form for a few hours a day, with the rest of his time being in a skinny state that he hides from the public to avoid tarnishing their symbol. In contrast, the rest of Deku's life is far from rewarding, as when he returns to Dr. Tsubasa, he is informed that the blood test came back negative, with the man explaining how the readout clearly shows no discernible quirk factor. Likewise, Bakugo's bullying remains relentless, and while the green-haired youth is pretty certain by this point that he could pound the other boy to Kingdom Come with ease, he knows that All Might would not approve, so he settles on using his forewarning to avoid him where possible. And so it is that several months pass, with Deku finishing up his beach cleanup significantly earlier than in canon, This in turn allows All Might to be in the next stage of his training, teaching him how to fight, and most importantly, how to hold back his considerable strength now that he has honed it through all his hard work. While Deku isn't much of a fighter, he enjoys this time with All Might, as it almost feels like the sort of roughhousing he might do with his dad if he weren't always away for work, with the pair sharing several memorable funny moments, like when Deku misses a blow All Might had expected him to block and so goes skipping across the beach like a stone, or when the symbol of peace loses track of time and awkwardly reverts to his skinny form right in the middle of one of their spars. Though, Deku is not the only one to get something out of this dynamic, as by now All Might is sure of it. He wants the boy to be his successor, and the next inheritor of One for All. In fact, by this point he's fairly certain he can handle the strain on his body, so all that's left to do is tell him about the quirk and offer it to him. Figuring such conversations are best had over snacks and drinks, the symbol of peace ducks into a nearby convenience store, confident that his skinny form will protect his anonymity. Once he has what he needs, he gets in line to pay, though it seems not everyone has the same idea, as stepping into the store with a gun in his hand, a balaclava-clad man orders everyone to get down. As one, the shoppers and staff drop, knowing their best course of action is to do as they're told and wait for the heroes to arrive. That is aside from All Might, whose body moves on his own, as it has hundreds of times before, since it is his duty to save these people and ensure they can live freely with a smile on their face. And for his trouble, he receives a bullet, as the villain proves that he is not messing around. Looking down, the number one hero is almost shocked to see blood blossoming from his stomach and staining his white shirt crimson, with the irony not being lost on him that this is not the first life-threatening injury his torso has taken, though, in the end, it seems a regular man's bullet will do what a demon lord's countless quirks could not. By now, his legs have given out beneath him, so that he can do little but watch as the gunman bounds over him and snatches a handful of cash before dashing out the door, as the sound of his shot will have no doubt drawn the attention of heroes and the police. But they are not the only ones, as having been alerted by the sound, Deku now dashes between cars as he tries desperately to reach the store All Might had gone into, with a sight that greets him inside making his heart jump into his throat. Kneeling down, the boy then cradles his dying mentor, unable to speak, while strangely, All Might seems determined to pull out his own hair, though, with all the blood loss, he lacks the strength to even pluck one out. Recognizing this, and that there isn't enough time to explain One for All and bestow it to the boy, the symbol of peace instead decides to leave young Midoriya with the best advice he can, the synthesis of his heroic legacy, as that at least he is certain the young man will carry on. Finally, after a moment of thought, he finds the words, and so with his dying breath relays the message, "With great power comes great responsibility." And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.